Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Schifrin, and I'm calling the meeting of the Planning Board of October 24th here at 6:33 p.m. I'd like to have a roll call vote, please. Can we start with online?
Ian Ortiz present.
Carol Haas is present.
Robert Therian, present.
And Laura Schifrin present. Would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. You will all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Special thank you to all of our veterans who may be with us and those serving abroad. We appreciate your service. The meeting is being recorded. And under 1.4, Chairman's additions, deletions to the agenda or unforeseen prior to 48 hours, I'd like to add, the draft of the minutes of October 3rd, 2022, which has been put in the porthole for the board members to review. And do I have a motion to accept that?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of October 3rd, 2022.
I second it.
Thank you, Ian. Any further discussion? All those in favor, I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Carol Houses, yes.
Robert Therian.
Ian Ortiz, yes.
Laura Schifrin, yes. Okay. Also like to add under 4.6 correspondence from the MBTA update on affordability. 1.5 review volunteer response forms received for planning board vacancy.
I'm sorry, there were none received.
Okay. So I'd like to announce again to everyone that we do have a vacancy. Currently the vacancy is for an associate position. And we are a pretty busy board, so we'd like all the help we can get. If anybody's interested in the planning for this town, please send it in your form. Let's see, we have a few minutes before the appointments, so this where's the 3 point, we can go to 3.1.
Yeah. You guys have.
A mandatory referral for 5 Madison Ave accessory apartment.
That's in, it's all, I didn't print out the application. Did you see it? In
Yeah,
the-
I did. It had nice, we call drawings and everything.
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. Application for a accessory apartment.
Any comments from
the
the-
location and 5 Madison Ave?
Is that Mr. Shanks?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, and then basically the size is 798 square feet, in-law apartment. And Mr. Shanks and his wife will be living with their family. Yeah, and that is in response to the building commissioner's determination letter. And a public hearing is scheduled for November 7th.
okay,
All the drawings and floor plans are in
yeah.
Yeah, I saw the
your folders.
Any comments from the board?
I don't have any comments.
Ian? Is your hand up?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think what he's doing is right in line with what we were hoping people would do. So I'll take a recommendation for a comment to the ZBA. It's for a referral. How do we feel about,
Oh,
is that what you want to know, right?
Just
Typically, yes.
I mean, why would we not agree with it? Or why would we not have a comment?
Oh, it's up to
We
you
support it.
completely, yeah.
Well, I mean, I say that I support it.
I support it. I mean, I don't have any comments, but then what fine is this?
Okay, then I guess, we support the, applicant in having an accessory apartment. 3.2, we have a few minutes. Article 2, Chapter 195, site plan review, special permit revisions.
Yeah, I mean, that would take some time, but
Yeah.
basically I incorporated all the revisions that you
That we
made.
did already
Yeah,
at the last.
so it's nothing new. It's all stuff that you guys had.
Okay,
mentioned in that.
so it's just to just,
Keep going with the
Yeah.
review.
Yeah.
okay,
So we remember where we left off?
Well, I was actually referring to the site plan reviews special permit zoning bylaw that you went through.
Okay,
So when I incorporated all those changes
okay.
and, I thought if it was fine, if it's okay with the board, I'd meet with town council tomorrow and let him review what you
Okay.
guys had done for changes. And then if there's time, which there probably isn't, it could go to special town meeting or spring town meeting.
Okay.
okay. Thank you for your work on that. Under correspondence, 4.1 citizens planner training. Collaborative fall schedule of courses. That's just for your information, if anybody wants to attend. 4.2, the stormwater permit project updates, inspection reports, other related correspondence. Were there any updates? 'Cause we did that last month. Last
Yeah,
meeting.
I really find that because that's, there's something I can monitor. We did get a monthly construction inspection checklist from Three Wheeler Road. And everything looks in order. And that's all we have for this particular time period.
Okay. See, we don't have a summary of the notices from the other towns, but they were just hearings, right?
No, they're quite lengthy, so I mean, you could probably get if somebody's good at scanning. I could do that.
Yeah, would you mind?
The first notice is, can you hear me from over there?
Mhm.
Okay. From the town of Lunenburg Planning Board, a notice of decision for an application for site plan approval. And I believe it was granted. Yes, with conditions. Town of Lunenburg Planning Board, the notice of public hearing on October 24th. To hear a citizen's petition to amend the zoning map by rezoning a portion of the land located at 199 Massachusetts Ave from residence A to commercial district. So the entire lot is in the commercial district. Town of Lunenburg, again, public hearing is announced. That is to make alterations to the code of the town of Lunenburg, chapter 250, zoning, article 4, use regulations, section 250-4, use table, by changing 4.1 and parentheses 10, motel in the commercial district from Y to SP-Z. And that's a public hearing. Town of Lunenburg, planning board, public hearing, on the 24th. They're going to review an application to grant site plan approval for a use of shopping center as granted by the ZBA at 88 Massachusetts Ave, parcel blah, blah, blah. That is 6:05 on October 24th. The town of Groton has a notice of decision from the planning board for a site plan review. It's been granted to Seven Hills Extended Daycare Facility. And the town of Shirley Planning Board has granted a decision of the planning board for the special permit application of Brit Patel for sorry. I can't find the meat of it, if you will. But it has been granted, so you could follow up with me if you want more information on that. Town of Pepperell, the planning board has issued a notice of public hearing in accordance with provisions of MGL chapter 48, section 11, and sections 9410, 8130, and 5350. The planning board will hold a public hearing on an application requesting a major site plan review, a special permit for construction that proposes impervious areas in excess of 15% of the total lot area in a water resource protection overlay district, Zone 3 Aquifer Watershed Protection Zone, and a special permit to allow for 2 signs larger than allowed in a residential zoning district. And that will be held Monday, November 7th at 6 p.m. Yes.
Thank you. Any questions for Beth on those? We are at 6:44, so if those present would like to sign in, you did, thank you. And let's see, online I only see one guest. Gary, can you identify yourself?
Sure, this is Gary Amadon from Ambrose Corp.
Okay. Make a note of that. Yeah. Okay, we are at 6:45. And I will open the public hearing and announce the board members, please.
Carol House is present.
Robert Therian,
Ian,
Ian Ortiz present.
Laura Schiffern present. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, 5 and 11, the Townsend Planning Board will hold a public hearing on October 24th at 6:45 p.m. at Memorial Hall to review a proposed amendment to the Townsend zoning bylaw, being Chapter 145 of the Town Code, Article 9, entitled Special Provisions, Section 54.1, entitled Age Restricted Development. Remote attendance provided by, I'm not going to read the address. Parties wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this proposed bylaw amendment may do so in writing prior to the hearing or at the hearing. Copies of the proposed amendment are available in Town Hall or upon request by emailing to Beth. Respectfully submitted, Laura Schiffern, chairperson. And copied various boards. So I am now going to read the proposed bylaw, which was drafted by our attorney, our town council. To see if the town will vote to amend its zoning bylaw, being Chapter 145 of the Town Code, Article 9, entitled Special Provisions, Section 54.1, entitled Age Restricted Development, as follows. 1, by striking from subsection C entitled Basic Requirements, item number 5 in its entirety. 2, by striking from subsection C the following sentence, item 7, a pertinent conservation restriction running to or enforceable by the town shall be recorded for the common open space area and shall include restrictions that the land be retained in perpetuity for conservation or passive recreation. 3, by renumbering items 6, 7, and 8 in subsection C as items 5, 6, and 7 respectively, following the elimination of the existing item 5 aforesaid. 4, by thereafter adding to subsection C a new item to be numbered 8, stating as follows. The planning board may, in its reasonable discretion, reduce, alter, or waive any or all of the foregoing basic requirements upon demonstration by an applicant of just cause for such reduction, alteration, or waiver, or take any other action thereto. Questions, concerns from those in attendance?
Laura
Joan?
Jones, Savoy Adams Road. Please, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. To what end item? Small I. By striking from said section C, the following item, sentence in item 7.
See that? What was she saying?
Let's make sure. Okay, that reads as follows. Nothing in this section shall preclude the planning board from reducing or waiving minimum setback requirements between buildings or internal lots created within the age-restricted development upon demonstration of the applicant of just cause. That's what was stricken.
It says here, a permanent conservation restriction relating to or enforceable by the town shall be reported. That's being stricken.
No, that's 7. I'm sorry. I was doing 5. I thought you said 5. And you did say 2. So 7 states the minimum common open space in the development shall be 30% of the lot area and not more than 25% of the required minimum common open space shall consist of wetlands. The upland open space shall be contiguous and usable by residents of the development. Planning board thought that was sufficient.
I'm still not understanding why you want to strike the verbiage that's here in item 2. To what end? That a permanent conservation restriction, basically you're saying there aren't going to be any permanent conservation restrictions.
For that purpose,
For the purpose of
the age-restricted zoning.
age restricted, thank you. And this
planning
would
board
be
thought there was
any
enough.
age restricted zoning development? Or just case by case? I guess if you take it out, it's not there.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Were people complaining about this or something? Conservation restriction on the open space?
That's
I'm
an open,
curious how-
that's an open-ended question.
I
There's
just-
many people that complain about conservation restrictions.
Well, yeah, that's true, but
So,
this particular case, I mean, I understand there are maybe 3 conversations going on about an age restricted development. So I just wondered if this feedback from the potential applicants was that they didn't like the whole idea of conservation district.
I don't ever remember having or hearing any good conversation about conservation restrictions from any developer about anything.
I see.
We're trying, as you know, to make things a little bit more
Easy.
user-friendly for some development to happen,
Right.
which has not been happening for a very long time. And it is affecting our tax base, not having any new construction. So I'll go back to one statement that I make repeatedly, and that is about the Board of Health. And basically, I look at the Board of Health as our conservationists, really. They're not gonna let a development happen or issue a septic permit in an area where it would affect our water table or anything like that.
So you're
And
saying-
wetlands already, the wetland laws already exist.
Right.
The setback side, whatever, already exist.
So you're saying you think it's covered, I mean. The thing that occurs to me is that, some future time, the zoning bylaw could change and somebody could try to develop the open space. And what you're saying is the Board of Health would basically prevent that because.
If it wasn't good for the environment, it would not be happening.
I hear you.
We've been very restrictive in Townsend forever. And the taxpayers are suffering the consequences of that. Any other comments from the board?
I have none.
Um,
Robert?
I'm not specifically clear on what the concern is.
Well, this is my concern. Thank you for asking. So I'll just make an illustration. Let's say you have a 10-acre piece of land. Someone wants to develop 5 acres of it. 50%, the back 5 acres are wet. And so, but it's a 10-acre parcel. So we say, okay, you can develop part of this dry 5 acres up front, but the back 5 acres are going to go in a conservation restriction, which means that 20 years down the road, they couldn't sell that back 5 acres and say, oh, we're going to build back here now. So it's like, it's permanently protected. Now, I realize that we want to encourage developments, particularly age restricted and multifamily, et cetera. But I am still concerned about even if we have a development that is approved, which we know a lot of the current regs can be waived because we're satisfying housing the state demands. That if you say we're going to have these apartments and this is open space, or maybe we have some apartments and some ownership places too, like the building in Groton. No, that's all rental. New places going. But let's say you have some ownership units and some rental units, and someone buys in there, or they decide to rent there, and they're saying, "Oh, there's the open space. That's why I like it here." And then now there is no protected open space. So if you're doing an ownership development and it's sold as, oh, this is open space, but then that later gets developed, is that not fair to the owner?
You open the statement with 10-acre parcel, 5 acres is wetlands, so you're not going to build on the wetlands. Then why do you have to have the wetlands be open space? You're not going to build in
Well, you're
wetlands.
not going to have any conservation restrictions. You're striking that. So, I mean, conservation restrictions are usually given to we'll say, okay, we'll give you this if this is conserved, meaning that the place with the CR on it can't be developed down the road. You lost your.
Yeah, and can you please move up? I'm sorry, because I don't think you're close enough to the speaker, and I just remembered.
Thanks, Beth. Sure.
Okay. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And conservation does have a lot of land, and we do have a lot of open space in town. I don't see the need to add to what we have. I don't see how putting a further restriction on wetlands property is going to encourage an owner. If somebody buying it, should it be up for purchase rather than rental or whatever? We're having trouble tonight.
Yeah.
I don't see
So maybe I phrased it wrong. Lori, if am I correct in this statement? So that there would be if we build some multifamily or affordable housing and we don't say any of it, there's no open space, as you know, it's an enticement if you obviously buy a house, buy conservation land, or you rent an apartment and you know that, oh, that will never be developed behind me. That's a big enticement for people. So basically you're saying with any of this age restricted housing, that you wouldn't even say this is open space behind you, because the idea is that there wouldn't be any conservation restrictions. Is that
No.
correct?
Yeah.
No.
Why do we have to have more restrictions on wetlands property?
I didn't say it had to be wetlands, but a lot of developments have open space that's not necessarily wetlands, but it is an enticement to renters and owners.
If you were doing a 40B, you would have open space, right?
Not necessarily.
I don't think.
Do we
there
have
is.
do we have a 40B in town that does not have open space?
What are you saying? You won't have any open space?
Now, the Coppersmith Way, for instance, there's no designated
So
open
what-
space there.
Because
Well, there's Highlands too in the back.
Yeah.
They provided trail access to the town recreational property there. But
I'm
And
just
the-
trying
the
to, you know, I'm also on the Affordable Housing Trust.
yeah,
I'm
so
I'm just trying to understand to what end this is being stricken. Because if we're developing affordable workforce housing or age restricted housing, and there is some open space, you're not, if it's not going to be preserved as open space, then that can't be used as a sales pointer.
Well, I mean, the other thing about this is there'll be a plan. And there'll be houses and there'll be a designated open space parcel, correct?
Right, because it has to be a percentage of coverage and.
So then it will be,
it's already,
it'll be on the plan, so that pretty much.
yeah, I mean, it's
that's-
outlined how much it's
that
gonna be
limits
there.
Mhm.
And
But
there-
no CRs.
The permanent conservation restriction is what's being struck out. We don't feel it's necessary. The board did not feel in their purview in doing this, it was not necessary.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And hopefully we can be somewhat encouraging to somebody at some point. Anything else
will-
as we go through?
the,
Okay.
The fourth item. The zoning board asked me to represent them on this.
Okay,
Basically, we felt that there's really no framework for the planning board to use to decide whether these waivers are just or not. One of the attorneys on my board said, this looks like the definition of arbitrary and capricious.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm not an
we were
attorney,
thinking-
but our town council is the one that drafted
I
it.
know, I'm gonna tease him about it the next time I see him, but the zoning board felt, you know, if you just wanted to use the language in the special permit that says you know, the planned development will not have adverse effects which counterbalance its good effects on the town and stuff like that. And there's 7 items that we go through to kind of do a finding of fact to justify a special permit.
Mhm.
And you could do the same thing in here. I mean, you guys are used to having waivers in the subdivision control law, but this is a zoning bylaw. It's not the subdivision control law.
Right.
Mhm.
So we don't have waivers in the zoning bylaw typically. So that's all, that's what we felt is that you might want to create some sort of framework, and if you don't wanna create a framework, just steal the thing out of the special permit, bylaw. Something like that.
Thank you. I understand what you're saying.
And that gets you off the
And
hook
duly
because,
noted.
you know, the last thing you need is somebody suing you for something that's arbitrary and capricious. That's claim number one in all the lawsuits that we get, is that we acted arbitrarily and capriciously. So you want to back up any kind of deviation or waiver from the bylaw
With the process
for the process. Exactly.
that they would know ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay, duly noted.
Well, you know, I think, thinking about that Seaver Road subdivision where they had 34 waivers they were requesting.
People can ask whatever they want.
Well, that's
Right?
true, that's true.
Doesn't mean they get them.
Thank God.
And I think we have to remember that, anyway, my time on this board is that we look at each situation differently. You know, we don't, I heard somebody say once, just because we did it before doesn't mean we'll do it again.
Well,
Do you remember those words?
yes, if you make a mistake, you're not compelled to repeat it, is what it really meant.
I don't know. But I think process is good. I think people knowing ahead of time what the process is good. And we'll certainly speak to town council about that.
Great, thanks. The only other issue I had was, you're still at the 2-acre lot size. And I would really like to get that down to 1 acre in the downtown area. Because I think, you know, we have some lots that could be developed.
We have a housing plan, a housing production plan that was approved by the well, it was approved by the town, and it is in effect. And the housing authority is working right now, actually, on multifamily zoning, and looked at like 8 other towns with what their acreage is, frontage, side yard, and
Downtown, you mean?
for
Downtown areas.
us to make, well, in general. So for us to make, for the housing authority to make recommendation to the planning board for zoning bylaw changes.
No, I think there's a lot of merit in what you're saying, and also from a historical standpoint as well. You know, the town of Townsend is very 3 distinct village settings: the center of town, West Townsend, and Townsend Harbor. And, you know, it's just aesthetically, you have a sense of arrival when all these houses are covered together, and then you're out in the country again. And I've witnessed other communities that just had broad scale front yard and requirements that destroyed the hinterland between the villages. And so all of a sudden the identity of the village is lost. And so some of the concepts that have been used to remedy that is to have higher density in the village sector to encourage that closeness and that old colonial feel. And then it came into the areas between the village districts, preserving that scenic highway concept, and it got very complicated with historic people and everything, because we found a lot of developers were just thinking about that architectural style or color was the significant thing that needed to be achieved. And what really needs to be achieved is the sense of arrival in a village. And so I had proposed that people, let's not have the historic district get worried all about the in-between village sector. As long as there was a tree buffer zone of 40 or 50 feet. So, you know, that old tree line road and that meandering road would still be there aesthetically and emotionally. So that you had a sense of arrival. Oh, now I'm in West Townsend, or now I'm in the village, or whatever. So I totally sympathetic to that concept, and I think it's for the betterment and the preservation of the town too, as far as image and its character.
Thank you, Robert. Stan, you had your hand up.
I just agree with Bill that it should be on, we should be able to do that on smaller lots. But when I was here 2 or 3 months ago, and I had some questions about some of the specifics in the bylaw, like that 30% open space and those kinds of things. I think that needs to have another look taken at it. So if you take and allow that over 55 on a 1 acre lot, and you have to preserve a third of it as open space, you're really gonna fit 1 unit on there by the time you do that septic system that you're doing. So some of those things have, maybe there has to be different districts, or even on a 2 acre lot, that 30% open space is too onerous. I've had a couple of people have come to me to look at it. I said, well, you can get 2 units there. And they go, oh, well, I'll just build a house. You know, because.
I know, I heard it.
You know? So there's a
The
couple things in
problem
there that I
is-
think were, you know, that I understand how the bylaws get written. You look at other town bylaws and you say, oh, that looks good, that looks good. But until you put it in practice, you don't know that it needs to be tweaked. So
Right.
there's some things on there that probably could stand a second look. And I'd be happy to give you input if
Yeah.
you want to, and you know, at off meeting time or something. I'd be happy to talk to Beth or you guys, because I do live in town.
Yeah, and this bylaw, well, this is age restricted, but all of our really construction bylaws need to be tweaked, all of them, not just for age restricted. And the multifamily, you know, is another one. If you have a good piece of property and you could have a three family put on that with town water and your septic's all done, you shouldn't have to even wait for a bylaw change. And that's why that one's throwing up their hands, because
Right.
they can't wait. It costs money,
Right.
you know, and so you ruin the developer. I don't know what else to say, except we're trying to do things that will make it easier, but make sense. Environmentally sound. Board of Health says it's okay. You're not seeing anything that's gonna be a bad effect on anything. That's what we're trying to do, trying to have common sense about it, not restrictive, or we don't want it in our backyard, or that's not the view we wanted. Because that's not really going to help anyone in the long run. So. Okay, next I'm supposed to do a written correspondence and referrals. So we have, from Veronica Cal, Beth, please provide this to the planning board for Monday night's hearing. Thank you. For the hearing on Monday, October 24th, on the suggested changes to the age-restricted development bylaw. 1, having an open space requirement in the bylaw infers that development is not just buildings and parking lots, but includes an open space area that can be used for short walking trails, garden areas, etc., making development more desirable to those who have lived in a family home with outdoor spaces and are downsizing. I was on the planning board when this bylaw was being developed, and I strongly support this requirement. 2, I have seen what blanket waivers to a bylaw can do, and I strongly object to this language being added. Thank you for your consideration of my concerns. From the Board of Health, I only want to make you aware of the nitrogen loading requirements within Title V. Numerics. Requires that nitrogen sensitive areas zone 2 of public water supply and properties. Yeah.
I'll start over from the Board of Health.
Yeah, yes, sorry.
I only want to make you aware of the nitrogen loading requirements within Title V. VMR. Title V requires the nitrogen sensitive areas, zone 2 of public water supply. And properties that are served both by a private well and septic. Must have a minimum land area of 10,000 square feet. Per 110 gallons per day of sewage discharge. That's from Rick Metcalf. He's the agent for the Neshoba Board of Health. Then the zoning board of appeal. The ZBA members agreed with items 1 and 2 and 3 of the proposed amendment. However, with regards to item 4, suggests that there are a special list of criteria to be met for granting a waiver. Townsend Zoning Board of Appeals. The Conservation Commission, no comment at this time. Members of the commission will attend. And the Board of Selectmen, Highway Superintendent, Building Commissioner return with no comment. Anyone want to discuss these topics?
Could you just please read the Board of Health statement again about the,
Yes.
thank you.
They want you to make us aware of the nitrogen loading requirements, which are already defined within Title V. So that's what they operate under there. And Title V requires the nitrogen sensitive areas, and they call out the zone 2 of public water supply, and properties that are served both by private well and septic must have a minimum land area of 10,000 square feet, which is a quarter of an acre, basically, per 110 gallons per day of sewage discharge. The sewage discharge, as I understand it, is based on the number of occupants in the building.
Right.
So,
How many bedrooms would that be, Stan?
110 gallons is one bed.
Oh,
per person, is that right?
No, it's just number of bedrooms, so.
Number of bedrooms.
Title V is 110 gallons per day per bedroom, so if you were in a nitrogen sensitive area, you would need 40,000 square feet to have a 4-bedroom septic system,
I see.
thank you.
regardless of the rooms. Well, there's so few of little intricacies there, but basically you need a quarter acre per bedroom.
Thank you.
Yeah, they should have clarified that by.
Yeah, the 110 gallons per day for someone.
Right.
So
I
what?
don't do it every day, yeah.
Yeah, right. I don't think I use that many.
Well, the one question that I asked Rick, and he's talking about it there, is in the bylaw, in the age restricted bylaw, it talks about town water only. But I said, what's wrong with having a private well? And he said, well, basically you get into the size of the lot has to be a lot larger because the well has to be separated by 100 feet from the
tank.
leach bed
Right.
and so forth. So that's what I think he's getting at in there too.
I don't see this as a major concern, do you?
Well, there are a lot of places in town, particularly upland, that don't have town water.
Right.
So basically you're saying you can't do multifamily housing on those parcels without bringing in town water, which was done years ago
Well,
on West Meadow.
It surfaces in many levels though, not just from the health department. To do multifamily, it can be done, but it's extremely expensive. The multifamily laws now, you have to have sprinkler systems and everything else, and there's no, there's no way. I mean, for someone to do something like that, they'd have to provide their own reservoir to satisfy the fire protection people. So the likelihood of that is very remote, not just in the conservation or health department aspects, but also in terms of building construction.
That would allow someone to do like
I-
like a duplex with 2 bedrooms in one.
yeah, well, a duplex is not really
Right. When you get
multifamily.
it free.
Anything over 3 units is. So, I don't see where this would have, I don't see a abundance of applicants that would be.
Well,
Well, the Affordable Housing Trust, all the land we own is not on the
town water.
town water.
Right. And, we also have trouble with our town water as well, so
Yes, we do.
I think that's a governing factor on any proposed multifamily project, is the burden on the community. And this has been witnessed many times on Cape Cod, and now the states come in and mandated to have sewer treatment plants and everything else down there, and they don't have the money or the budgets to do that.
Right.
So I think that would be a concern of almost every department within the town here. I would see that the only likelihood I could see that would be somebody that had a massive amount of acreage it would seem to me it would require a massive amount of acreage to do a minimum amount of units if you look at all the standards that have to be achieved. I don't know what else to tell you, but
Thank you.
No, it's good. Well, you can't,
Okay,
you can't solve the
Right.
entire problem in one go, that's for sure.
Chas has his hand up.
Hi, Chas.
Hi there. I'm speaking as a resident, not as a selectman or as a liaison to the planning board. I just wanted to add my 2 cents. I'm in agreement with Mr. Cadigan and Mr. Dillis in regards to the amount of acreage involved in this. The 30% when we were crafting this was based upon what the acreage is in the current bylaw. But I agree with you that if we do reduce it, we would have to reduce that, the open space in that, to be able to do that. So if there's going to be a waiver, that's number one. Number two is I'm in full agreement to be able to increase the amount of housing production within the town, but be sensitive to the rest of the area. So again, I'm in support of the idea of having a format or a protocol that you guys follow in regards to what the special conditions are that you'll be able to waive and that kind of thing. That'll give the applicant a better idea of what the board would be willing or not willing, so that they don't go through an application process and find out that they can't get what they're trying to do. It would be costly to the applicant to be able to do that. So I'm in agreement with that as well. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I wish we already had something like that we could do now. That somebody had a viable property that was in sand, got a good septic, had town water, that they could just come and say, I can do this here. Can I do it? But we don't, right?
we don't have any mechanism at all.
I'm just going out on a limb here, because, I'm on a.
I'll let you do that,
housing
Joe.
trust thing. And I'm learning, we're all pretty green, but aren't there zoning overlay districts? You can just say, okay, that one parcel over there, magic wand, you're overlaid with your zoning and no 30%, and you just kind of do it acre by, plot by plot.
I wish we
possible
could.
parcel.
Yeah, well,
I wish we
Isn't that a
could.
thing? That's a thing.
But they could.
Right.
On Main Street.
Why aren't we, are we going in that direction to
there's
get the zoning overlay?
there's been a lot of conversation about overlay districts. And one of the challenges we have is trying to update policies and requirements that are very outdated and inappropriate. And it's a burdened thing. We can't go through the whole zoning bylaw at once. So we've been trying to do it in bites so that we can do it with a conscious, serious look at every section rather than trying to be burdened with, with ignoring small topics or whatever for the sake of getting it done. And so the overlay district is a very interesting thing, but we're still considering how to define them and trying to, consider the types of uses that could apply, and then that incorporates, the town services, the water and sewer, and so an overlay district. Some of the stuff that we think is we're having conversations on, such as mixed use and trying to preserve, reutilize properties that are no longer functionally working well or doing anything. And so there's been some inquiries from developers on overlay districts. And so we've had, I don't know, Carol, a number of meetings on that topic. And so I personally have started some kind of a guideline to present to this board of topics. And so that we can work with them to get them to, you get feedback on it and have an open discussion so that we can give developers that are approaching the town more criteria of what to do so that we can encourage them to do things that we need, in other words. So there's a lot of topics here. I mean, we do want to increase housing, but we don't want to destroy our environment either. So an overlay district provides a lot of opportunities that way. One of the fears I have, and it's hard to be on a planning board because you're trying to think of now and you're trying to think of the future. And so I do not want to encourage, I want to preserve enough commercial area. So if we can't drive our cars to Fitchburg, we have a place in town where you can get food or whatever. So, so the multi-mixed use kind of concept works well. It works well for I think for the age restrictive development because they don't need a lot of outdoor space. So to encourage a developer to incorporate those things and give him the resources he can through zoning bylaws to make it a viable product so that he's getting some positive results from it. And we are too. So this MBTA?
Adjacent.
Right, so they really put a little bullet to a lot of people's heads here. So now, it's sort of like, do we get what we want or do they get what they want? And so it's a very challenging topic. But in another way, very exciting because we can take some of our properties in town and, find a better adaptive use for them. And it's been successful in so many other parts of the country. So again, we don't have anything in place right now. And that's one topic that we have to work on as well. But it takes a lot of thought and takes a lot of input too. So we're sure that we've heard or try to get every kind of presentation of concern before you develop something that is going to be a problem or an issue later on. So I don't know, I'm speaking for the board here, I'm not outlined, but we know the objectives, and I think this board shares yours, particularly affordable housing, this age restricted housing, the overlay district, these all could be very valuable tools.
Thank you.
Did you get to say everything you wanted to
Well, I
say?
just have one question. So Lori, at the end of the day, let's say you have the perfect overlay district, you have the perfect, everything's in place. Does it come down to the BOH restrictions? I mean, they can't, those are like state mandated, are they not?
Right.
So that's it. That's really your baseline?
Our Board of Health restrictions are higher than the state.
The states.
And the state allows them to be. So in our case, it is the Board of Health. If you can't get past the Board of Health or a good well, you're not gonna have anything. But to put further restrictions on our already restrictive area, it's not gonna work. It isn't. That's why we're so far behind and everything, but. So did we get to the conservation comments? Yeah.
They didn't.
Robert,
Yes.
They didn't have any, they were just
Robert,
gonna have.
read them. I'm
Okay.
not here representing conservation.
You're here representing yourself.
Me.
Okay, so. Have you, and so Chaz had done his pro. Anybody else have anything else to say? Pro or con? Mr. Amadon, did you have anything to say?
No, I'm fine here.
Okay,
I
thank you for joining us.
I want to make a comment on the age restricted development. The maximum building height here is pretty restrictive. And at 32 feet, it's based on everybody's building on a level lot. So then they get into proving what's the average grade and defining the average grade and all this stuff. And so I'd rather see requirements instead of in terms of feet and inches, in terms of stories and 1.5 story, 2.5 story, or 3.5 story. So this is based a 32-foot height limitation is below, is a higher standard in most communities, by the way. Most communities is 35.
Or, yeah, our bylaw is 35 as well.
Yeah,
So I don't
and
know.
we're at 32 here.
Yeah, that doesn't
So,
make a lot of sense.
I
to
mean,
me.
3 feet's not gonna change the world, but and so I see developers try to circumvent this stuff by putting flat roofs on and all this other stuff. And these things are based on what normal people think of as a house with a pitched roof on it. So, and then it gets very complicated into what a half story is. And so if for example, if a building footprint is 1,000 square feet, we have other communities that say, well, you can build out in that gable attic 50% of the square footage. Now, why they came up with that and why that works, I don't know, but somebody decided that was okay. And then it gets really defined. It doesn't include the stairs or not includes the stairs, and it goes really crazy. And the bylaw gets bigger and bigger with more exceptions and more complications. And so I don't know, but that's something I see here that I'm not too happy about. But I think there's got to be a better way. And these things, to go to this 32-foot requirement here, then you got to go and read the definition and how that's determined.
Well, is the setback 50 feet still? In
They don't have the setback.
the front yard, so there's no setback, so that might be what the reason for the reduction in height is, because it depends, how high the building looks depends on the setback. So you're standing in the street and the setback's only 10 feet, you're looking, you know.
Well,
I think the zoning setbacks apply in the.
But it
I think
does,
they do. I'm not-
50 foot.
well, I'm gonna have some comment on this, okay? I understand that. But if we're talking about 4 units, 8 units, 10 units, you're gonna have design professionals in here, right? Anyway, and that's part of their job, is to address those kinds of concerns.
Right.
And sometimes when you put limitations on this, it makes it more challenging for a professional to come up with something that is good. So anyway, I just wanted to get my comment there.
I think you make some good points. And I just saw where they had, the minimum frontage is 100 feet, not 200 feet, but it's still 2 or more acres of land.
Well, for example, if we were talking about an overlay district, all right, I'm just gonna take an example of a building we know in town, okay? And it's in Townsend Center, okay? It's where the dollar store is, okay? It's commercial property. That could be an overlay district very easily. The whole lower level is commercial and they're having trouble leasing it. The second level could be residential. If you want to put a 32-foot height limitation on that, not going to work. Okay. So, and the idea of mixed use buildings, particularly with residential and commercial, is you double load the parking. You eliminate the need of a residential occupant getting in an automobile to go to a destination to, when they could be serviced right in the immediate loci where they are. And so all those things are what I call are exciting about overlay districts. And so they can apply even beyond age-restricted developments. I mean, one of the big things that we have here is we have affordable unit problems, and we have people that require 3 and 4 bedroom units, and there's no supply for them. So in these districts where we're revitalizing a suffering project, a suffering commercial entity, in other words, if you have a vacant or 20% occupied mini mall or strip mall, the tax burden is still there for you. And so to give that person, the owner of that mall or that complex, some relief so that he can benefit and benefit the town and make it less than a stress for the owner when he has a vacancy problem. So, so I think I'm excited about this overlay district, and I want to I've been trying to, I only so much time to keep poking at the outline of it, but to develop some of this so that it can be presented to this board and to the zoning board and as, so we can get support for some of these things. And then to have something that can be handed out to interested people that are trying to do something. So again, I'm really trying to conserve the commercial space we have and not have it recycled to residential just because it's unoccupied.
Well, you build the residential units and you don't have a commercial space vacancy problem anymore. That first, the coffee shop will come in and the little red sauce Italian restaurant comes in and boom.
Right.
They all
So
follow.
we do have to keep our commercial base. We do have to increase our residential base. And we do want to have higher density housing where it's appropriate, where we already have a large commercial space, for example. That we already have, like some of the areas, I mean, I think in my head, like a Bates box used to be. That's pretty, it's a commercial property, but it's pretty distressed, you know what I mean? And that could be so vital to Townsend Center and West Townsend. And so there are properties like that down Route 13 towards the Lunenburg lines, a great opportunity to do something overlay district there. We had someone come in that was interested in the east end of town, which is kind of good because there's a lot of commercial there already. So that would make a really good overlay district to look at. So I think what the outline should be what the town's objectives were, what they encourage, and have a scorecard on how many points they get in each one of these things that a committee can collectively look at and say, well, what does it mean? What do you think about this? Is it a 7 or an 8 or a 4? You know, and come up with a conclusion that it's more beneficial or less beneficial for the community. So.
Okay, anybody else? No other pros or cons? I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing at
7:40.
7:40. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Robert, you get a second.
Is there a second to close the meeting?
Okay.
I second it. I was expecting
Thank
Robert
you,
to second
Ian.
it. Yeah, but
I'll take a roll call vote to close the hearing, the public hearing at 7:40 PM.
Carol Hofstas, yes.
Ian Ortiz, yes.
Arbitrary.
And Laura Schifrin, yes. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your input. And all of this will be discussed with Beth and the attorney. Okay. Alrighty, next on the agenda is, so we already did a lot of this. Anything on safe routes to schools?
I actually am meeting with Emmy Hoff from the Recreation Department and the new guy that took over from Rachel. I think we're gonna have a meeting on November 9th.
Okay.
I guess discuss, because Rachel got promoted and so is Jordan is taking over for Rachel, so we're going to meet on the 9th of November to go
Okay.
over whatever,
So we meet on the 14th. You can let us know
what happens.
what happens.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Okay, 4.5. Stan, we have a letter from you on the agenda.
Yeah, I think Beth is trying to schedule a sidewalk up at Campbell Farm,
Okay,
and I'm trying to get that all wrapped up. And they've done everything that's in their conditions, and as you know, it's gonna remain a private road. So we've submitted an as-built plan, we've done everything in the condition, but Beth had some concerns with the stormwater permit, because she was under the impression that it included all of the lots as well. And it may, but that's not typically how it works. For example, up there, they sold one of those lots to somebody else.
Mhm.
And they may not build on it for 5 or 10 years. And it doesn't seem to make sense that they can't close out their stormwater permit and their subdivision approval and get a sign off from the planning board until the whole thing's built up. So that I think would be when we do the site walk, and maybe we can talk about it then.
Okay.
And figure out the avenue to get them to their stormwater permit to be issued, to be signed off on and everything done. That way, and then whenever the houses get built, if they trigger the requirement for a stormwater permit, they'd obviously have to get one, but I think that, I don't know if I didn't quite agree with Beth's interpretation of the permit, but there was no point in arguing with the permit because you guys are gonna have to make that decision.
Okay. And we'll probably have to do a site walk in order
Yeah,
to
I
make
think-
that determination.
Right, and she was gonna try to schedule something, but thought she was gonna try to schedule something this week, but it's right next week, at this point, I would imagine. She left, and I saw her in the hall, she said she heard.
Yeah.
Or something, and
Yeah.
she said, to tell you she was going home.
Yeah, I figured that because I knew before the meeting that she had gotten hurt.
So that was my letter, was to ask for acceptance of, or a sign off on the stormwater permit and the definitive subdivision. But we have to figure out.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that tonight.
No, I don't think we can.
Okay. All right. I appreciate the explanation. Okay, so thank you for coming. Appreciate it. We have on the agenda, but I don't think this is correct, that our next scheduled meeting is Monday, the 7th. And my understanding is that it's the 14th. We are only meeting on the 14th in November. And then we are only meeting on the 12th in December.
I thought our next meeting was the 14th.
That's correct, of November.
Okay.
And then
November 14th.
like, November 14th, that is the only meeting we have. And December 12th.
Then December 12th.
Mhm. And if there's nothing else to come before the board, I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn the meeting at 7:45 PM.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:45 PM.
I'll second it.
Okay,
I also.
thank you, Lance. Thank you, Lance. Right, Ian.
Yeah.
I hope you're doing well. Laura Schiffern, yes. So thank you all for joining us this evening, and everybody stay well.